Welcome to the Co-working Values Podcast. I'm Emily Breeder. If you're a community manager struggling with reaching your audience, our latest offering is designed for you. In this 3-month cohort, we will help you build your community, learn practical strategies, and stay motivated with personalized guidance. Join us to transform your workflow and strengthen your community management skills. Look in the description of this podcast for more information on how to sign up. And now, here's a word from our sponsor. This podcast was brought to you by Nook Wellness Pods. Nook Pods provide on-demand, semi-private areas for working environments and for higher ed events. They combine noise and light management in a personal space where people can withdraw to recharge, focus, and connect better. Perfect for flexible co-working spaces. See more about this product in the show notes. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Co-working Values Podcast. Today we are talking to Gavin Neate. He's joined us for our accessibility edition of the podcast. Gavin, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, yes. My name is Gavin Neate. I am 55, grey, or greying. I think people said silver fox, but I'll take that. But I'm more white than grey these days. And I'm based in the United Kingdom, currently in Buckingham, which is kind of just above London a bit and to the left. But I'm all over the place usually. But that's who I am.
And tell me about, how do you pronounce this? Welcome or welcome me?
Well, it's interesting. So the logo for my company is the word welcome, W-E-L-C-O-M-E. Now, all of us, whenever we've gone out shopping or whenever we've gone out into the world, we've seen the word welcome. It's normally above a door. It's normally somewhere of prominence, and it's there to make us feel welcome. We read it and we go, oh, yeah, we're welcome. But if you go through that word, W-E-L-C-O-M-E, there is a me at the end. And when it comes to disabled people, they very seldom feel that me is relevant to them, because there are specific needs that disabled people have, or specific bits of information that if they are reflected in the knowledge of a customer service personnel, then the person does feel more welcome. So what we did was we put the M and the E in our logo into a different font, which meant that when you read it, the M and the E are a little bit more prominent, but when people read it, they go, that says welcome me. Of course, it doesn't just says welcome. It's just the M and the E are slightly more prominent because they're in a different font. I don't mind whether it's called welcome or welcome me. I just like the idea that somebody goes, there's a me in welcome.
Nice. And what is your what was your introduction to the world of accessibility and disability?
This is going right. First, the dinosaurs came. I think that's from Airplane, but it is from Airplane, isn't it? So in 1986, on leaving school, I joined the military. I was a Royal Air Force Police dog handler. So that got me into dogs. And then in 1996, I left the military and I'd been looking around for a job to do. And I thought, well, I'm a dog trainer. I know dogs. Why don't I join Guide Dogs for the Blind, or what a lot of people in the States would call seeing eye dogs? But I had a guide dog school just north of where I was in the military. So I did 2 years of voluntary work. And then in 1996, I went for a job to become a dog trainer. And they said, no, we want you to be a guide dog mobility instructor. And that's the person who trains the person how to use the dog. You do a little bit of work with the dog, but then your main role is handing the dog over to the blind or visually impaired person and then training them how to use it. So I moved from a passion for dogs into a passion for what dogs could do. And I think assistance dogs, service animals, they are just phenomenal. The idea that I could train or help to train a dog to provide independence for a visually impaired person, or blind or a visually impaired person, was just phenomenal for me. And I took to it like a duck to water. And I've been involved in disability advocacy and solutions for disabled people ever since.
Excellent. I love dogs too. I actually used to work.
Well, there you go. I don't really. It's always a little bit of a, what? He doesn't love dogs? I love what dogs can do. I see dogs as a lot of people see children. I love my own, but I don't have any. But I kind of see them as separate from all children. There are certain dogs I absolutely adore because they're just brilliant, incredibly well-rounded animals that are brilliant and listen to you and do what you say. And there are dogs that you just go, oh, I'm not so sure about those. So I love what dogs can do. I'm not a dog lover.
Yeah, I used to work in rescue, and I used to rehabilitate pit bulls.
Oh my word, that is a job. That is a job, and that's a tough game. If you go into a lot of dog homes in the UK, about 75% of the dogs in these dog homes are bull breeds, and they are very challenging to rehome. So congratulations, and if for every one of those you rehomed, you were saving a life. So fantastic, well done.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they're so resilient, just amazingly resilient. As soon as you show them a little bit of love, but you're absolutely right. You have to treat them as an individual. Um, just the same as with people. You can't just put them into a broad category and say that this is what they need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
And
I
some,
definitely see the connection too to what you did then
mhm.
and what you do now.
Yeah, yeah. And just on the dog thing is, if you have a dog, treat it like an individual, as you say,
Hmm.
and not like a breed. So if you say, "Oh, it's that breed, therefore it's going to be like this," that's not the case. There are certain
Yeah,
breed characteristics, like a bloodhound is going to have its nose on the ground a lot of the time, and a border collie is going to want to round up sheep or bicycles and cars. But every dog is slightly different. So don't just go, "Oh, I know that breed. I've had those breeds all my life," and then go up and treat it as if it's the same. It's not. Be very, very aware of how a dog is acting and then interact with it.
right, right. Uh, it's just best to treat everyone as an individual for sure. I
100%.
I am
You are so right.
I'm autistic, and so are both of my children. So
Uh-huh.
there are a lot of assumptions about it, about how to interact and how people will be in a working situation. So,
Hmm.
for example, I cannot work in a corporate atmosphere, but I really excel in an atmosphere like this where I'm doing something creative and I'm talking to people, but
Yeah.
there's a bit of a control between them.
Yeah. And the truth is that everybody has different aspects of their character that, whether they're disabled or not, that means they are better at something or not as good at something else. And that's the most important thing I think we've learned over the last few years is that everybody is slightly different. And some people will thrive in certain environments and some people won't. And if you can adapt those environments to suit the person, then you could potentially end up with phenomenal workmates or employees
Right.
or colleagues or bosses or whoever it might be. And I think that's just massively important, certainly taking into consideration what we're discussing today.
Absolutely. So can you tell me a little bit about what Welcome does?
Yeah, certainly. So, as a mobility instructor, when I was training people with guide dogs, I would walk into a business. So, yes, a lot of the work we did was out on the street. So, how to get around wheelie bins and how to get around sandwich boards or A boards or whatever you might call them, and how to deal with down curbs and up curbs and pedestrian crossings. But a lot of what we were doing, or at least a percentage of it, was what happens when you go into a building. So, as a disabled person, when you go into the building, who's going to meet you? How are you going to interact with them? And how are they going to interact with you? Now, what I observed was that the staff member was kind of a bit like a duck out of water, or is it a fish out of water? Fish out of water, probably. And they were a little unaware of what they should do. So after the interaction, I would go up to them and I would say, "Oh, next time you meet somebody with a guide dog, please don't talk to the dog. Please introduce yourself before you do anything else because they maybe can't see a name badge. Please make sure that if you're giving sighted guide, wait for them to take your arm rather than you take their arm. And please try to avoid saying things like it's over there or it's over there because that's not really much use to them. And then when you're walking away from them, make sure you say you're going so that they're not talking to thin air." So I would give people those 5 tips. And then afterwards, would keep my fingers crossed that they would put them into practice. Eventually, what I started doing was, where I could, running ahead of my client when I knew which shop they were going into, talking to the staff member and giving them those bits of advice before my client walked through the door. And guess what? It was brilliant. staff members were like, well, yeah, I introduced myself and I didn't speak to the guide dog, and I had a really good experience. It was brilliant. And there was nothing clunky about it. And I just knew what to do. And I would say, well, weren't you trained? And they said, well, either they would say, yes, they were trained, but had forgotten it, or that they hadn't been trained at all. And the truth is that, and this is a crazy stat to roll out, but within 24 hours of any training program, 75% of the information you've taken on board has the potential to be lost, especially if it's not reinforced. So if we take that into consideration and we realize that we can reinforce the information, or we can provide aid memoirs, i.e. 10 minutes before somebody walks through the door, we give them the information they need, then they will avoid making discriminatory mistakes. And that goes with everything, but Welcome was designed to ensure that disabled people could communicate their need just by a couple of clicks of a button with the staff member before they came through the door. And that's exactly what we did.
Wow. Is there any particular problem that you or challenge that you feel arises more often than others?
Well, that's a really interesting one. And it kind of goes a little bit back to treat everybody as an individual. So different groups. So when I first started this, I was thinking predominantly around visual impairment. But then, of course, I realized, well, quite a few of my clients have got different disabilities, or secondary disabilities, or primary disabilities where their main disability is visual impairment. So I then started thinking, well, this is really good for somebody with autism, or somebody who has a stammer, or somebody who has Tourette's, or somebody who has cerebral palsy, or somebody who has any condition, aphasia, ataxia, motor neurons disease, muscular dystrophy, anything and everything. So everybody has a different need. Individuals generally will have a broad spectrum of needs. So I would say for all visually impaired people, if you introduce yourself when you first meet them, you're not going to go too far wrong. If you're meeting somebody who's neurodiverse, it's probably a safe bet to say that it's a good idea to have the music turned down rather than loud music and flashing lights. That's probably a generalization, but it's not a bad one. There's not many people that walk into a business and say, I wish you had louder music and more flashing lights. And people wouldn't complain if they weren't. So there are generalizations, and that's what we're really doing. We're providing the business with general information that they could put into practice that enables a good foundational interaction where the disabled person, if they should so wish, can share more information about how better to help them. It's that foundational, I know who's coming through the door, I know how best to help or best to interact with them initially, how can I actually deliver that? And then from there, the disabled person goes, oh, I feel much safer now, I feel much more confident. I think I'll share more. Or this is perfect. This is exactly as I need it to be.
Wow. So how does the actual functionality work? Like when you interact
Yeah,
with
it's
it?
so simple. In fact, somebody said to me once, they said, do you know what, Gavin? Intelligent people would never come up with this idea because it's too simple. Somebody equated it to putting a television on a bedside cabinet and then turning the television on and then with the light from the television reading your book. Somebody said that to me once, and I was like, yeah. They said, no intelligent person's ever going to come up with that because they're going to use the television for lots of other things rather than reading a book. So here's how it works. Well, originally it was an app. So you downloaded an app onto your phone. But then we realized we wanted to make it a web app. And a web app means that you just go to a website to use it rather than have to put something onto your phone. So it means it can be used from a PC or a laptop or a tablet or a phone or anywhere really. And you go onto a particular website. And you set up a profile, very, very simple profile. You put in your name, the name that you want people to call you. You put in your photograph. You put areas that you want people to have a bit more awareness. So if you are living with Tourette's, you might say, I would like them to know a bit more about Tourette's. And then you just pick the venue that you want to go to. There's a whole list of them. And you pick a venue, you say you're going, you say when you're going, and automatically when you press send, they get training on your general and specific needs. General, So for Tourette's, they would get information on how to interact with anyone with Tourette's, but also you would have the opportunity to put in what you want to do that day. So let's say, now we launched with Levi's this year. If you were going to a Levi's store and you wanted to buy a pair of trousers, but you needed them to be smart and you wanted them to be a size 34 waist, you could say, I'm looking for a smart pair of trousers. I don't really mind what color, 32-inch waist. If they know that information before you turn up at Levi's, that's incredibly useful, because it might be that you have problems communicating because of anxiety or speech patterns or anything. So you can specify what you actually might want. If somebody's deafblind, it might be that somebody thinks, I want to go there myself. I don't want somebody standing next to me. I want to purchase this myself. I can turn up and they already know what I need without having to worry about communicating with me. Or it could be a parent with a child or a young person who's autistic, and they're wanting that child to have more independence. So when they turn up and they're wanting to buy a new pair of trainers or sneakers, then the staff member is already talking to the young person, if that's what the young person wants or what the parent feels that they need. So there are lots and lots of different ways to use it. Now, you press the send button, the venue and the business themselves get the picture, your name that you want to be called, and some training. And that training is an overview of the condition and 5 to 8 top tips on how to interact, but also links to videos and websites where they can do a deeper dive if they've got more time, like a video of autism awareness, or how to give sighted guide, or epilepsy first aid, or whatever it might be relevant to that person's potential need.
I see. So do the businesses themselves have to sign up individually for this? Like, do they have to have an agreement with Welcome?
So this was a really important thing, and I know lots of your listeners will be entrepreneurs and have businesses themselves. And one of the key points when it comes to starting a business is your business model. And we realized that one of the key points for us was we didn't want disabled people to have to pay for this service. Disability already ensures that people have to pay more just because they're disabled, let alone anything else. So we were very, very keen that it didn't feel like this was another thing they had to pay for. So the business model then had to move on. Well, who's going to pay for it? Well, we could be a charity and then have to raise funds for it. We were like, no, what we want to do is we want the businesses to pay for it, because the business is going to benefit from it. So Levi's pay us a monthly subscription to be on the platform. But by having it on the platform, will be selling more products. If they're selling more products and they make more money from the products than they do paying for the platform, not only have they sold more products, but they've also got staff who are more aware of disability and aware of the pitfalls of discrimination. So they use it as a training tool. So the business model was all about free for the user and a low monthly subscription for the venue. And it's such an entry level is so low that we just want to have thousands and thousands of businesses signed up.
Right. In the business themselves, do they have an app, or is it a computer
Just
program?
a website. No, just a website. They go to, I think it's app.well-co.me, and they then just log in, and then they can see who's coming that day, and it'll pop up on the screen. It then drops off the screen at the end of the day. My company Welcome, we're the data owners. So we hold all the data. The company doesn't have to worry about GDPR because they don't own the data, we do. They get the information required to provide service for that individual. And at the end of the day, as I say, it drops off the screen.
I see. So they get like a notification, or do they have to manually check the website?
No, they get a notification through email. You can get a text message. They could get a phone call saying that somebody has planned a visit. I also get a message, or my account management team get a message to say somebody is planning a visit at a particular venue. And then I can see how quickly it takes for the venue to accept the visit. So let's say somebody creates a visit to a particular venue and it's sitting there for 2 hours. I could then potentially contact the venue and say, I noticed that this one's been sitting there for 2 hours. But I usually leave it until a little bit longer, because sometimes it's difficult to get on top of it straight away.
Right. Yeah, you want to give them a little bit of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Busy.
Busy people.
Is there any issue with compliance from like staff?
No, that's one of the things that I love actually going into detail with, because all of the venues that have engaged with this, it's their responsibility to provide the service. They're buying into it. They're paying for it. They're like, wow, this is going to give us the opportunity. Now, yes, of course, it's important that you employ the right staff in customer service. But what this does is it gives them a process to follow where they have to follow it. Now, I say have to follow it. Within 24 hours, the visitor gets an email from Welcome that says, would you like to rate the venue that you went to and give us some feedback about the staff members? And 99.9% of the time, I was met at the door by Michael. Michael was fantastic. It was brilliant. He introduced himself. He already had a glass of water and took me across to a seat and showed me where the accessible toilet was. It was a brilliant, I'll be coming back again. Fantastic experience. So we can then feed that back to Michael and Michael's manager, and then Michael gets a pat on the back for something nobody would ever have known about. So it's a super way of actually getting feedback to the staff when they've done a good job.
Wow. What's next for Welcome, do you think? Is there more innovation on the horizon?
Well, there's so much. The roadmap is ginormous for things that could be done within the platform. So imagine you're going to your favorite restaurant or coffee shop and you've asked them to put aside your favorite table, and they already know who you are, and you've already ordered your Danish pastry and your flat white coffee, and you've already paid for it. Now, we don't have payment within the platform, but that's something that we could do. But the big thing for us, I think, more than anything, is that this needs to exist in all countries in the world. North America, as far as we can tell, we've not heard anybody say that this exists anywhere else. There is one company in Australia, I think, that does something similar, but there's nothing in North America that we've found. There's nothing in the United Kingdom. We think there's around about 600,000 businesses in the UK alone that could use it. So as far as scale is concerned, it's ginormous. Some of the venues that we've already got, we've just launched with Currys, which is a massive electrical retailer in the UK, 300 stores. Levi's have 75 stores, but we're also in libraries and leisure centres and museums and art galleries and gardens and castles and member of parliament constituency offices and science centres and swimming pools and restaurants and you name it, hospitals, transport hubs, ferry terminals, train stations, airports, anywhere where there is customer service.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's nothing like that in the US. There's been a bit of a movement to take away a lot of rights and a lot of compassion here, which is extremely disappointing to watch.
Yeah. Is that relevant to a sort of backlash to inverted commas woke movement?
Yes, exactly.
It's
Exactly.
quite distressing because it's become politicized. I am proudly woke, because when I think of woke, I think of people who, for generations, have been under incredible pressure and have been quite distressed about a lack of thought. And it's, as in my mind, wokeness is empathy for other people. It's been utilized and pushed forward as something so much more than that, like caring too much when somebody doesn't deserve it or something stupid. But it really has been hijacked. What it means is think about somebody else's life and work out how you can make it easier for them in a particular given situation. And if we could all do that, then my God, the world would be better.
Yes, we're having a bit of an issue with kindness.
Oh, do you know what? I agree, but to a certain extent disagree. Because
Yeah.
I know for a fact there are people out there who are brilliant. And there are people out there on both sides of the political divide who are brilliant. They are kind and generous and friendly and hate the idea that the other side isn't, and look for people who are. And I totally know that those people are the quietest, but they're also the largest in number. We hear
Right.
far too much from the noisiest people, and they're the ones that seem to dictate the national identity and narrative, and I don't believe it's the case. I believe there are good people out there, and the majority of people just want other people to feel good.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
It's so easy to get down on this, but and I understand why. And I follow American politics. I have done since 2016. I don't watch British politics at all. I follow American politics. I know exactly what's going on as far as I can from a distance. I watch all of the channels. I have the ability, or the fortunate ability, to be able to get involved with both sides of the spectrum. And I'm always asking myself, why? Why does somebody feel like that? And I think once you start asking yourself, well, why does somebody have an opposite view to me? It's not because they are the opposite of me. It's because their experience has led them to have that. And if they were thinking that about me, then we have mutual ground to meet. Now, everything to do with welcome is about knowing somebody's name before they arrive. Can you imagine walking up the street or getting on a bus or whatever, and everybody you walked past, you were 100% certain of their name? 100% certain. It would be impossible to walk along that street without smiling at the people that you were walking past and saying hello, John, or hello, Fred, or hello, Mr. Smith, or whatever it might be. And that's where, taking it back to welcome, that's where my massive mission here is to improve human-to-human interaction through technology, but with technology in the back pocket rather than in our hands. This is about human-to-human and societal interactions.
Where can people get in touch with you if they wanted to online?
Please do. LinkedIn is my favorite spot because it's much more professional and less emotive than Twitter and places like this. Although we have a presence, I think Twitter divides people, whereas LinkedIn pulls people together. Certainly that's how it's been since I've started using it, or I've felt that it is. So Gavin Neate, Neate, on LinkedIn, and people will find me. There's not too many Gavin Neates out there. And I absolutely love connecting with people who have listened to anything that I've said and feels that it resonates with them.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Gavin. We really appreciate you telling us your story and telling us about your app, and we wish you the best of luck in the future.
It's beyond a pleasure.